What's going on, guys? Victor here with a brand new video, and I got to talk about the main event that's going to be taking place on June 18th, 2022 of this year, back in Austin, Texas. The UFC's returned to Austin, Texas since 2018, so I'm talking about 4 years. That's how long it's been since the UFC's been back in that city. And they've got a great main event lined up for every single one of you fans, for every single one of us, I mean. I'm talking about the main event that's going to be taking place between two fighters, two top contenders in the UFC featherweight division that are definitely vying for that title shot. Two men that are trying to chase that gold between all those killers at the top. I'm talking about Max Holloway, the champ Alexander Volkanovski, the Korean Zombie. I'm also talking about T-City, Ortega. I'm talking about all these different fighters, talking about all these different fighters that are at the top, one of the UFC's best divisions that they have to offer. This main event consists of Calvin Kattar, who's 23-5, versus Josh Emmett, who's 17-2. Between these two individuals, they have 17 knockouts in total. So there's going to be a lot of action in this fight. There's definitely going to be a lot of high pace action, a lot of movement, and definitely a lot of heavy leather being swung between both these individuals. Not because of their fighter styles, just because they get a lot of their work done on the feet. A lot of their victories have been done on the feet, and there's really not that much when it comes to jiu-jitsu and wrestling between both these individuals. Josh Emmett definitely does utilize more wrestling than Calvin Kattar. Calvin Kattar also did used to wrestle back in high school, so that was his first sport before going fully in the mixed martial arts. So there is a wrestling background between these two individuals, but because of their track record, they love to stand and bang. They love to stay on the feet. They love to take care of their business via knockout or TKO against their opponents. Josh Emmett, his claim to fame was his knockout against Ricardo Lamas. Ricardo Lamas, I thought he might have been dead there for a moment because of how long he was knocked out for. He was stiff as a board, and it was a really scary moment. That's how much power that Josh Emmett is packing in his hands. And the most notable knockout that Calvin Kattar's had was that knockout against Jeremy Stephens. And Jeremy Stephens came in at, I believe it was 2 or 3 pounds overweight. He came out pretty heavy, and he was able to knock him out with that lead elbow, followed by the ground and pound. So those are basically two standout knockouts that both these individuals have had in their respective careers, and both these guys are vying for the top. They're trying to get a title shot off of this victory against one another, to be able to catapult them against a shot against the current champion, Alexander Volkanovski. And you've got all these different killers at the top, not just Alexander Volkanovski. I'm talking about the Korean Zombie just fought for the title. I'm talking about Max Holloway, the former champion. I'm talking about T-City Ortega, who fought for the championship as well. I'm talking about Yair Rodriguez. There's so many different killers. There's so many different well-known names at the top of the UFC featherweight division. It really goes to show that this division is one of the best divisions in all of mixed martial arts, especially in the promotion of the UFC. And both these guys aren't going into their play. I believe this fight is going to not go the full 5 rounds. I believe it's going to end in the finish, just because, like I said, the track record between these guys. Now, there's one thing about Calvin Kattar, is that he has more experience with 5-round fights than Josh Emmett. The last fight that Josh Emmett had, which was a 5-rounder, was against Jeremy Stephens, where he got knocked out via ground and pound, which the elbow had a lot to do with it, and he ended up getting a broken orbital bone and a couple other injuries as well. But since then, he's been able to rack off a couple wins. He ended up beating Shane Burgos in one of the best fights I've seen in a very long time since I've started watching mixed martial arts. He also racked off a win against Dan Ige as well, which was an impressive win. This guy has come back from a pretty brutal loss against Jeremy Stephens, and now he's fighting one of the best UFC featherweights in the world in Calvin Kattar. And Calvin Kattar also had some similar adversities that he had to go through in the past. He had to fight that adversity against Max Holloway, where he absolutely got obliterated for 5 straight rounds. He showed a lot of heart. He didn't get knocked out. He didn't get stopped during that fight, but he was able to come back and rack off one important one against Giga Chikante, and basically put on the same amount of damage that he absorbed against Max Holloway on Giga Chikante, which was very, very impressive, and a 5-rounder. He did sustain a considerable amount of damage in that fight. You could have seen it during his post-fight interview, but he looked really good in there, and I believe both these individuals are going to go in there trying to take off one another's heads, and there's not going to be that much wrestling. There's not going to be that much jiu-jitsu. I believe this is going to be a stand-up affair. You're going to see a lot of kickboxing, a lot of Muay Thai taking place during this fight, and both these individuals are going to go in there and try their absolute best in order to get a win, in order to get out of there as well. Like I said, you're going to have to give the cardio background to Calvin Kattar because it doesn't ever look like he really gets tired, and you're going to have to give the power output to Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett has put a lot of people out to sleep. And another notable knockout that he had was against Michael Johnson, when Michael Johnson dropped down to the featherweight division from the lightweight division. And Michael Johnson was winning the majority of that fight before Josh Emmett was able to come in there and clock him straight flush on the jaw. And it just knocked, it was bad. As soon as Josh Emmett clicked and connected that punch against Michael Johnson, the fight was already over. That was another huge notable knockout of Josh Emmett. It shows how much strength and power that he has in his hands. And it's just not the right hand. It's also the left hand as well. He knocked down Shane Burgos the second time in their fight with the left hand, when he knocked him down the first time with the right hand. Shane Burgos was never expecting Josh Emmett to go in there with the left hand hook, and he paid for it. And that's one thing that Kattar's going to have to look out for too. Not just the power, but also the movement of Josh Emmett. He's a pretty fast fighter. He's really quick. So the speed, movement, and power, I definitely give that to Josh Emmett. But the technicality and the odds-on IQ, I'm definitely going to have to give that to Calvin Kattar. Both these guys have been in the UFC for a couple years now. Both these guys have been battle-tested. Both these guys have faced the who's who in the featherweight division of the UFC. And they have a lot of experience overall, which is going to make this into a very fun matchup. And if you ask me who has the upper edge going in there, I believe it's going to be Calvin Kattar. But if you ask me who has the bigger chip on their shoulder going in this fight, it's definitely going to be Josh Emmett, because he's been through a lot. He really has. He's been through a lot of injuries ever since coming into the UFC, sustained a lot of injuries after some of his fights that he's gone through. And he's really been, he's been up to the highest of the highs, and then he's also been down, but he's come back up, and now he's ready to be battle tested once again. I believe Uriah Faber and Team Alpha Male up there in Sacramento have done a great job with Josh Emmett. And then you also got the New England Cartel, who have done an amazing job with Calvin Kattar. And both these gyms are very different from one another. Obviously, Team Alpha Male is a mega gym, one of the best gyms in the whole world. And then you also got the New England Cartel, which is a pretty small gym as well. You don't have too many well-named fighters that are coming out of there, but obviously you got the Rob Fonts and Joe Lozons and the William Knights coming out of that whole entire region that are really making a huge difference. So the New England Cartel is only going to get bigger and bigger as these fighters continue to keep chopping their way up in their respective divisions. So I hope you guys are definitely going to enjoy this fight. I believe this fight's going to be extremely close, neck and neck, but I believe there will be a knockout in this fight. But if there isn't, expect there to be a split decision victory for one of these fighters. 5 rounds full of non-stop action. Josh Emmett versus Calvin Kattar. 17 KOs between these two individuals in total. Someone's going to add an extra L to the record. Someone's going to add an extra win to the record. Who's it going to be? I can't predict this one. I can't predict this one at all, because that's just how much I'm invested in this fight, because it's going to be a good one. Austin, Texas, the Texan fans, the whole entire state of Texas that's hosted a plethora of great fights over the years. You guys are in for a good one. Appreciate you guys for watching this video. Stay safe, stay blessed, and take it easy, guys.